cheese.
Chuck E. Cheese.
Yes, yes. It is the founder of Atari. You are correct there. So why do you like that quote so much?
Because it speaks to a couple of the challenges.
No one push now.
Oh, there we go. Thank you, James, for looking it up for us real quick. We all were spacing. We're all just so fired up being at the studio. We're like,
I don't know why I just didn't look it up myself because no one's looking at me. So.
That's okay. You're kind of in the middle of an interview right now, so that's okay.
Because it speaks to a few different aspects of my day job, which is investing. And so one of them is this proliferation of ideas and novelties and innovations and how those words get batted around. And the separation between the thought and the action. And so being able to actually do something about a new idea or a new technology or a new innovation versus just talking about it or writing about it or pitching it or making decks about it, that's exciting.
Absolutely. So tell me now, what or who is Fuel.LA?
So I've entered an interesting stage in life. I just turned 50, which I'm somewhat proud about, and it's nice to have lived this long. And hopefully I'll get another 50, but thank you. And I've started focusing on wanting to do projects that are much more about sharing and giving back and creating win-win situations and basically living abundantly like I have always for myself, but also being able to teach that to others. And so Fuel.LA is an interesting project. It's based on a brand new piece of litigation that was passed in 2017. It's called the Jobs Act of 2017. And it creates this very boring IRS sanctioned investment structure. So without boring you and your listening audience, I'll just sort of talk about why it's exciting potentially, which is that it creates a lot of incentives to put money into areas that would otherwise potentially be neglected. Inner city areas, underserved areas in rural areas, and a few other places. Along docks and other places that people don't normally want to do, upscale development and that sort of stuff. And it creates a series of incentives that lets people with money transfer that money into these areas and create not only great housing situations, but also potentially invest in businesses as well. And Fuel.LA is what's known as an Opportunity Zone Fund. And we've raised a certain amount of money to be able to do this right here in South LA. So hence the LA at the end of Fuel.
Absolutely, and we've heard quite a bit about these opportunity zones these days.
I'm sure you have.
Describe a little bit what are opportunity zones, and of course you said it came to be because of the Jobs Act, yes. but tell us more about opportunity zones.
So every state has designated these. It came down from the governor, but there's a lot of trading and horse trading and things like this. And then the final zones were designated about a year ago. And people have been raising money to start to put to work in these areas. And essentially, there's a series of permitted investments, mostly about real estate and mostly about creating affordable housing or variations on that. So, for instance, Fuel.LA actually has a novel take on what one of the real estate investments could be, which is to do co-working, and co-working in areas that would otherwise be underserved or neglected in the service of creating innovations, and helping people to actually get out of the shower and go do things. We are also basically committed to doing the other piece in South LA, which is investing in local enterprises and startups and innovations that are actually homegrown right here in the opportunity zones. So I don't know the exact geography of the opportunity zone in LA, but it is very near LA Trade Tech College, which is one of our partners. It's very near USC. Not that far from UCLA, and it's very close to the LA Convention Center. And so this is an area that has been underserved, underfunded in many ways, and we're looking to change that, very dramatically over the next several years.
Wonderful. And of course, we are homegrown from Phoenix, Arizona, the Eliances Heroes radio show. It's me, producer Glue, today your host on Dash Radio at the beautiful Dream Hotel in Los Angeles. Make sure you listen to all of our interviews, like the one we did with the co-founder of Banana, Healthy Banana Snacks. Go to Eliances.com and listen to all of our interviews and nominate your hero on Eliances.com. So what's the unique opportunity for entrepreneurs and real estate investors that's created by these Opportunity Zone projects, and who are you working with on this?
Sure. So the unique opportunity for investors and entrepreneurs is all about essentially, netting out all of the complexity and the jargon. It's saving money on your tax bill. And so what it does is it lets people who have participated in the stock market or have invested in startups, have built equity in real estate, sell these things, whether it's shares or whether it's property, and then instead of paying the regular tax bill on that, it lets them take that money and put it into qualified Opportunity Zone investments and shelter that tax liability for a period of time. And it's set up to have essentially a 5 and a 7 and a 10-year hold, and each one of those has certain financial characteristics about it. And the 10-year hold, the longest hold, gives you a significant amount of potential for upside, making new money, while still allowing you to pay a mitigated tax, basically. It's largely deferred. It's actually, the cost basis is lowered, and I'm so sure I'm boring your audience.
No. I mean, I'm sure this is incredibly educational for them. I know, because similar to how I am with the cryptocurrency, right? It's one of those kind of things. We did a show on that a while back, and it's one of those kind of things with the Opportunity Zones that it's kind of nebulous, and every time you hear about it, it's like, oh, I think I get it. And then you're like, wait a minute, how does that work again? So,
and it actually shares some characteristics with blockchain and ICO stuff, and mainly because it's so new and so under litigated at this point that it's possible to read the law and pursue something sincerely and authentically, and then not necessarily be the way that the IRS and the federal government want you to do it. So I think there's a lot of people who are being very careful about it and trying to be thoughtful about it. We have a very specific way of kind of thinking through some of these challenges in that gray area. We've raised almost $10 million at this point to go make these investments, which is exciting, and in a very short period of time. So, but we didn't even set out to do that. We actually set out to take the brand and the concept and to really understand how it had to be positioned with the local government and with local educators and local community organizations, including religious organizations. And we kind of went on a listening tour. We spent many months actually talking to very, very specific personalities that are leaders, heroes in their own communities actually, and listening to what they had to say and assertively, proactively trying to make that part of our brand story and making sure that what we did in our model spoke to those needs and those hopes and those aspirations.
Okay, so tell me about those personality types a little bit more.
Absolutely. In terms of the folks that we talked to on our listening tour, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, again, like I was asking Laura, how do you find that diamond in the rough, or that rock star that you want to work with?
And I have to go back to one of the things Laura said. I have an amazing team around me. One of them happens to be coming up later on your show, and one of them happens to be one of the folks who actually nominated me for this event.
Right, Peter Andronistakis with Oxygen Hospitality.
Peter,
we love
absolutely.
him. Yeah, he
both
powers
involved.
the show on this Dash Radio.
And so that was the first aspect of listening. Trying to understand their excitement and their interest. But then through James in particular, we had access to a gentleman named Larry Frank, who's the head of the president of the LA Trade Tech College, one of the largest trade and community colleges in the country. Through him, we had access to other people. A wonderful lady named Effie Turnbull Sanders, who heads up the Slate Z program. And these are government, community, secular leaders who have spent a lot of time serving the public. I mean, really, what they do is public service. and learning from them and really trying to understand at a deep level what they know to be true about the community here in South LA and what their needs were. And some of the things that came up were things like access to not just $10 an hour, $15 an hour job, but high-tech jobs. How do you get high-tech jobs? You build high-tech companies. So innovation actually becomes how do you deal with sustainability? What does it mean to live in a walking corridor? What does it mean to have that sort of services portfolio around a building? What does it mean to have the right internships and externships around all of those concepts? So yeah, we ended up learning a lot from them and incorporating into the model, and we've been pretty lucky so far to have access.
That's great. So are Fuel.LA's target investments one-off building assets or a collection of assets?
Yes, all of that actually. And so we've started researching right now our first acquisitions, and they are primarily in the individual asset sort of category, individual sites. And then our goal is to continue to identify more acquisitions, and in some cases there are actually groups of buildings in, say, a single block or a few different blocks. So we're pretty excited about all of that. But we're trying to be thoughtful about what happens when you actually get the asset. And that's where the magic about innovation and startups and high tech and how do you share the wealth and how do you push the wealth around. That's where the magic starts to happen, actually. Not so much really about the money, not so much about the real estate. It's more about what you do with people and opportunities on the site of the real estate itself that starts to create more magic in the community.
And let's talk about that magic a little bit, because I'm very curious, because you're talking about operating in these opportunity zones, which, like you said, underserved areas of a community. What does it take to get people to believe in your project and what you're trying to accomplish?
I think, as I said, our access points on the listening tour is step one. And then being able to speak directly to their constituents and being able to create programs that speak to those needs. I think there's a lot of friction really between community leaders and a lot of this outside money that seems to be coming into these neighborhoods. It's well documented. There's all sorts of protests that have happened in other cities like Seattle and San Francisco, and our goal is to basically listen very closely to the constituents, have programs that speak to big needs that they have, incorporate them into the opportunity to create more wealth for themselves as well as for their teams and their startups and their enterprises, and hope that the authenticity creates more cooperation and more collaboration.
Wonderful. And I want to talk a little bit more in our next segment how James fits into all of this.
Great.
So make sure you stick with us. Garnet, you create opportunities for investors and revitalize LA with your development to impact the economy. That's a hero, Garnet Heraman, and he is with Fuel.LA. Make sure you go check out fuel-la.co and stay with us. We'll be right back.
Thank you.
I was thinking food.
Oh.
The food desert.
Yeah, I was trying to get him to say
food. I had the list in my head.
You're like I think you were like, shut up.
I'm like, where do I want?
You're like, what? What language is that?
I totally had that in my mind. I was going to go down the list.
I know.
And then I didn't know.
My charades game is not so good.
I actually, it's funny because in the moment, I was thinking you were like, why did the fuck up? Get off.
I saw you react that way. I was like, oh no, that was not the right charade.
Oh my